Let's do a quick inventory of the morning routines you've killed. There was the 5 a.m. miracle morning phase. Lasted 9 days before your alarm became background noise your brain filtered out like traffic. The cold shower era. You screamed at 6:14 a.m. on a Tuesday, woke up your roommate, and never did it again. The journaling period. You wrote, "I am grateful for." 3 mornings in a row. Ran out of things to be grateful for by Thursday, and the journal is now holding up a wobbly desk leg. The meditation attempt. You sat on a pillow for 4 minutes, thought about lunch the entire time, and decided you're just not a meditation person. Each time you started with motivation. Each time you quit within 2 weeks. And each time you concluded the same thing. I'm not disciplined enough. Here's a different conclusion. The routine was never designed for you. Somewhere in the last decade, waking up at 5 a.m. became the unofficial entry requirement for being a successful human. YouTube, podcasts, every CEO interview. The message is identical. Winners wake up before the sun. Losers sleep in. It's a morality play disguised as productivity advice. The 5 a.m. club runs on the same logic as medieval monks who whipped themselves to prove devotion. The suffering is the point. If waking up early felt good, nobody would make content about how hard it is. The flex is the misery. And misery is not a productivity strategy. It's just misery with a ring light. This video is going to show you 3 things. First, the science that proves the 5 a.m. club is biologically wrong for roughly 1 in 4 people, and partially wrong for most of the rest. Second, what actually happens in your brain in the first 20 minutes after waking, and why almost everything in the standard morning routine sabotages it. Third, a system that works with your biology instead of against it, regardless of whether you wake up at 5 a.m. or 9 a.m. No cold showers, no 30-minute journaling sessions, no smoothie with 14 ingredients you can't pronounce. Just 20 minutes of respecting how your brain actually boots up. By the end of this video, you'll stop feeling guilty about your alarm clock, and you'll start understanding that the most important part of your morning has nothing to do with what time it starts. Every 5 a.m. routine video features someone for whom waking early works. That's not evidence. That's a highlight reel. You don't see the video called "I woke up at 5 a.m. for a year and it destroyed my health," because that person isn't making content. They're just tired. Tim Cook wakes up at 3:45 a.m. Good for Tim Cook. Tim Cook also runs a $2 trillion company and probably has a private chef, a personal trainer, and someone whose job is optimizing his sleep. Your alarm clock is not the variable separating your life from his. This is survivorship bias in its purest form. You see the winners who happen to wake early, assume the waking early caused the winning, and ignore the thousands of people who set the same alarm and got nothing from it except bags under their eyes. The core claim: early equals productive, late equals lazy. But chronobiology, the science of biological clocks, has spent 50 years disproving that. Peak cognitive performance is genetically time-locked. Some people peak at 6 a.m., some at 10 a.m., some at 2 p.m. Forcing a late peaker to perform at 5:30 a.m. is like forcing a left-handed person to write with their right. Technically possible, measurably worse, completely unnecessary. And the structural flaw that kills it even for people who can wake up early. Standard morning routines ask you to do 5 to 7 things in the first hour, but the first 20 minutes after waking is when your prefrontal cortex, decision-making, willpower, planning, is at its lowest. You're being asked to run a complex behavioral sequence at the exact moment your brain handles complexity worst. It's architecturally backwards, like asking someone to sprint before they've stood up. So every time you failed at a morning routine, you were experiencing a predictable biological outcome. Your body wasn't cooperating because the routine wasn't designed for a body. It was designed for a content strategy. And the guilt you've been carrying about it? Misplaced. Completely. Okay, so if the wake-up time is irrelevant, what actually matters? Because something is happening in those first minutes after you open your eyes. Something most people accidentally destroy before they even get out of bed. In the 1970s, chronobiologists started identifying chronotypes, genetic variations in circadian rhythm, that determine when your body reaches peak alertness, peak cognition, and peak physical output. Dr. Till Roenneberg's research at Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich mapped this across tens of thousands of subjects. The conclusion is blunt. Humans are not one-size-fits-all when it comes to wake time. Skip the fancy labels. Here's how it actually breaks down. Roughly 25 to 30% of people are genuine early types. Cortisol peaks early, sharpest between 6 and 10 a.m., naturally winding down by 9 p.m. Morning routines were built for these people. About 40 to 50% are intermediate, function best waking between 7 and 8 a.m., peak cognitively mid-morning to early afternoon. The 9 to 5 was accidentally designed for this group. Then there's the remaining 25%. Evening types. Cortisol peak arrives 2 to 3 hours later. Cognitive sharpness doesn't fully activate until 10 a.m. or later. Peak creative and analytical work hits in the afternoon or evening. Natural sleep window, midnight to 8 a.m. These aren't lazy people. They're running different biological hardware, literally. And if you're in that group and you force yourself awake at 5:30 a.m., the math gets ugly. You're cutting 1.5 to 2.5 hours off your biological sleep need every night. In a week, that's 10 to 17 hours of sleep debt. After a month, you've lost 2 to 3 full nights. Dr. Matthew Walker's research at UC Berkeley is clear. Chronic sleep restriction degrades memory, emotional regulation, immune function, and decision-making. You're not becoming more productive. You're becoming measurably worse at thinking and calling it discipline. Your chronotype isn't a preference. It's not a habit you can train out. It's genetic, as fixed as your height. The correct question was never, what time should I wake up? It was, what time does my biology peak, and how do I build around that? If this is hitting different right now, if you just felt something loosen in your chest because somebody finally said what you've suspected for years, hit like. That signal helps this reach the people who are still setting 5 a.m. alarms and blaming themselves when they can't hold it. They need to hear this. Now, wake-up time is off the table. It doesn't matter. But what happens in the 20 minutes after you open your eyes? That matters more than almost anyone realizes. And you're almost certainly sabotaging it. With the first two things you reach for every single morning. Within 20 to 30 minutes of waking up, doesn't matter if it's 5 a.m. or 10 a.m. Your body fires one of its most important daily processes, the Cortisol Awakening Response. CAR. Your adrenal glands release a sharp burst of cortisol. Not the chronic stress cortisol you've heard about, a different kind. A targeted functional spike designed to do one job. Transition your brain from sleep mode to operational mode. Think of it as your brain's boot sequence. CAR determines your baseline alertness for the entire day. Strong CAR, sharp focus, stable energy, emotional steadiness. Weak CAR, brain fog, energy crashing by 2 p.m., irritability, that feeling of having woken up on the wrong side of the bed. That feeling isn't random, it's a disrupted startup, and you're disrupting it every single morning, probably twice. Saboteur number 1. The phone. What's the first thing 80% of people do when they wake up? Grab it. Within seconds of opening your eyes, brain still halfway in a dream about your high school gym teacher for some reason, you're flooded with notifications, messages, news headlines, someone's vacation photos. A wall of external stimuli hitting a brain that hasn't finished booting. What happens? The phone triggers a dopamine response that overrides the natural cortisol awakening process. Instead of your brain completing its designed startup, cortisol rising, alertness building, prefrontal cortex warming up, it gets yanked into reactive mode. Attention scatters before it was ever collected. Andrew Huberman's work at Stanford has documented this. Checking your phone in the first 30 minutes trains your brain to start every day in reaction instead of intention. You haven't stood up yet, and you've already handed your neurochemistry to whoever sent a notification at 7:02 a.m. Saboteur number 2. And this one's going to sting: immediate coffee. I know. But listen, cortisol and caffeine do the same job. Both are alertness signals. When you drink coffee during the car window, the first 60 to 90 minutes after waking, you're stacking caffeine on top of your body's natural cortisol spike. The result isn't more alertness, it's a blunted cortisol response. Your system starts leaning on the caffeine instead of completing its own process. When the caffeine wears off around 1 or 2 p.m., your natural cortisol, which you've been suppressing every morning, isn't there to catch you. That's the afternoon crash. Not because you need more coffee, because your morning coffee trained your body to skip the system meant to carry you without it. My worst morning routine phase? The Wim Hof thing. Day 4. Standing in a cold shower at 5:47 a.m. in January. Hyperventilating, eyes watering. My cat walked into the bathroom and stared at me with genuine concern, like she was deciding whether to call someone. I got out, sat on the floor shaking in a towel, and thought, this is supposed to make me a high performer? Back to warm showers by Friday. But that wasn't even the real problem. The real problem was that before the cold shower, I'd already spent 15 minutes scrolling Twitter in bed and downed an espresso on an empty stomach. The cold water was dramatic. The phone and the coffee were doing the actual damage. Quietly. Every morning. 2 behaviors. Phone and coffee. Both done in the first 10 minutes by most people. Both directly sabotaging the one biological process designed to set up your entire day. You could wake at 5 a.m. or 9 a.m., doesn't matter. If your first 20 minutes are phone plus coffee, you're starting every day on a compromised operating system. The time on the clock is irrelevant. The window is everything. So, what should those first 20 minutes look like? Simpler than you'd expect. Way simpler than anyone selling you a morning routine wants you to believe. Forget the 60-minute rituals. Your brain doesn't need a routine. It needs an architecture. A specific sequence that supports the biological startup already trying to happen. You're not adding a program. You're removing the interference. 3 steps, 20 minutes. Works whether you wake up at 5:30 a.m. or 10 a.m. Step 1. Light loading. First 5 minutes. Within the first 5 minutes of waking, get bright light into your eyes. Not phone screen light. Actual bright light. Sunlight is ideal. Open the curtains, step onto a balcony, stand near a window. That first moment when the curtain pulls back and the brightness hits you. The slight squint. The way everything looks too sharp and too bright for about 30 seconds before your eyes adjust. The warmth on your face even in winter through the glass. That's not just comfort. That's a signal firing straight into your suprachiasmatic nucleus. The master clock sitting behind your eyes. If it's still dark when you wake up, a 10 Zeroen Lux light therapy lamp does the same job. $30 to $50. Best investment in morning energy you'll ever make. What the light does. It amplifies the cortisol awakening response and synchronizes your entire circadian rhythm for the next 16 hours. Dr. Samer Hattar's research at the National Institute of Mental Health confirmed that morning light exposure is the single most powerful circadian time setter. More potent than melatonin, more potent than meal timing, more potent than exercise. 5 minutes of bright light doesn't just wake you up. It calibrates every biological clock in your body for the rest of the day. Step 2. Movement priming. Minutes 5 through 10. After light, move. Not the way morning routine culture tells you. Not a 45-minute gym session. Not a cold plunge that sends your nervous system into emergency mode. 5 minutes of gentle, rhythmic movement. Walk around your apartment. Light stretching. The kind where your ankle cracks on the first few steps in that oddly satisfying way, where a slow stretch feels almost painful for 3 seconds before something releases along your whole spine, and suddenly your body remembers it has a back. Slow body weight squats. A quick walk outside if you can. Double benefit, movement plus more light. The goal is activation, not exertion. Gentle movement in the first 10 minutes kicks the sympathetic nervous system on gradually, raising heart rate, pushing blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, clearing adenosine, the sleep chemical still making you groggy. Even 5 minutes of light activity produces measurable improvements in alertness, not through endorphins, that requires intensity, through improved blood flow and sympathetic tone. You're not exercising. You're helping your brain finish waking up. Step 3. The anchor task. Minutes 10 through 20. This replaces journaling, replaces affirmations, replaces vision boards and gratitude lists and every other cognitive task that morning routines front-load into your weakest minutes. The anchor task is one thing, the smallest possible version of something that matters to you, completed before any external demand enters your awareness. Not email, not messages, not news. One task, your choice. The rules. It takes 2 to 10 minutes. It's completable. You finish it and feel done. It connects to something you care about. And it produces what I call first win chemistry. That micro-dose of accomplishment telling your brain, I'm a person who does things before the world starts asking things of you. Write 3 sentences of something you're working on. One set on a language app. Just one, not 30 minutes. Read 2 pages of a physical book you chose. Send 1 real message to someone you've been meaning to reach. Sketch for 5 minutes. Code for 10. The content doesn't matter as much as the sequence. You chose it, you did it, you finished it. Before the world told you what to do today. Choice, action, completion. That sequence rewires how your brain enters the day. Instead of reactive, responding to whatever notification screams loudest, you start generative, creating something small that's yours. That's it. Light, movement, one task, 20 minutes. No ice bath, no gratitude list, no CEO cosplay. 3 things that respect how your brain transitions from sleep to full operation. Supported by chronobiology, not by Instagram. And here's what should make you angry about every morning routine video you've ever watched. This costs nothing, takes 1/3 of the time, works at any hour, and doesn't require you to become a different person. The 5 a.m. club asked you to change your clock. This asks you to change your first 20 minutes. One is willpower theater. The other is neuroscience. I just spent 15 minutes talking about your first 20 minutes. But here's what I saved for last. And it might be the most important thing in this entire video. The quality of those first 20 minutes is largely determined by what you did before you went to sleep. Car strength, that cortisol spike powering your morning, is directly tied to sleep quality, duration, and consistency. Dr. Angela Clow's research at the University of Westminster showed that irregular sleep schedules reduce car amplitude by up to 30%. The best wake architecture in the world can't save you if you went to bed at 1 a.m. with the lights on and your phone in your face. So here's what I want you to do. Tonight. Not tomorrow morning. Tonight. Set 1 alarm. Not for waking up. For going to sleep. Pick a time that gives you 7 to 8 hours before your natural wake time. Not the aspirational one, the one your body would choose if nobody was judging. Set it for 30 minutes before bedtime. When it goes off, phone in another room, lights dim. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, at whatever time your body wakes up, skip the phone. Open a curtain. Walk around for 5 minutes. Do one small thing that matters to you. Then, and only then, check the world. That's your first wake architecture morning. It won't be perfect. Doesn't need to be. It just needs to be yours. You're going to want to add things. Should I also journal? No. What about cold exposure? Please don't. Can I meditate during the anchor task? Sure, but you don't have to. The point is that less is more in those first 20 minutes. Your brain is booting up. It doesn't need a productivity obstacle course. It needs light, movement, and one reason to believe today is worth engaging with. You didn't need a 5 a.m. alarm. You needed to understand that your brain has a startup sequence, and you've been interrupting it with a phone and a coffee cup every single day. The time on the clock never mattered. The window after it always did. The best morning routine isn't a routine. It's 20 minutes of not fighting your own biology. Set the sleep alarm tonight. Let your brain do the rest. Tell me in the comments, what time do you actually wake up on a day with no alarm? Not the time you think you should. The real number. That's your biological truth and the starting point for a morning that works for your body, not someone else's highlight reel. If this reframed something you've been carrying guilt about, subscribe. I make content that replaces productivity theater with systems built on how the brain actually works. Go set the sleep alarm.